The word of Isaiah, son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. In the days to come, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established as the highest of the mountains, and shall be raised above the hills. All the nations shall stream to it. Many peoples shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us his ways, and that we may walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth instruction, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations, and shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. O house of Jacob, come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God.
The second reading is from the 13th chapter of Romans, beginning with the 11th verse, found on page 1034 in your pew Bibles. Besides this, you know what time it is, how it is now the moment for you to wake from sleep. For salvation is nearer to us now than when we became believers. The night is far gone, the day is near. Let us then lay aside the works of darkness and put on the armor of light. Let us live honorably as in the day, not in reveling and drunkenness, not in debauchery and licentiousness, not in quarreling and jealousy. Instead, put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to gratify its desires. Word of God, word of life.
Thanks be to God.
Please stand as you are able for the reading of the gospel.
Gospel reading for the first Sunday of Advent is Matthew chapter 24, beginning at verse 36. Jesus said to the disciples, About that day and hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. They knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be in the field, one will be taken and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together, one will be taken and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. Word of God, word of life.
Praise to you, O Christ.
You may be seated. The Advent wreath on our kitchen table when I was growing up in Humboldt County, fourth of 7 children in our big preacher's family. The Advent wreath on our kitchen table changed over the years. Some years it was built around 4 big 3-inch diameter pillar candles that burned down inside of themselves as the weeks of Advent progressed. Some years it consisted of 4 slender tapers that you would watch get shorter and shorter during our sometimes long family Advent devotions each night. Sometimes there were lots of greens, branches cut from the bottom of our Christmas tree so that the tree would fit into the stand better, together with holly from the neighbor's overgrown hedge down at the bottom of their property. My mother sometimes placed a small manger scene within the circle of candles and sometimes decorated the wreath with glass ornament balls from our Christmas tree. Each year was a little bit different, but always the candles, always the evening devotions, always the excitement as each week one more candle was lit and we were that much closer to Christmas Eve. And you know what Christmas Eve means when you're a kid, even if you're a preacher's kid. When we were first married and living in our sparse apartment in St. Louis, 1975, a young seminary student and a young Lutheran day school teacher, I was so into Advent wreaths from my growing up years that in our new family of 2, we had a candle not just for each week of the Advent season, but I had brought in a big round slice of tree stump into the house and drilled holes in it, enough for candles for every day of the Advent season. 20-some candles that we lit one evening at a time, with all the lights in the apartment turned out and the heat turned up, and St. Louis sleet whipping at the windows. As the days of Advent progressed, so the circle of light increased within which the 2 of us read our devotions and anticipated our first Christmas away from the big, noisy families of our births. These days, our Advent wreath is back to 4 candles in a ceramic stylized manger scene. It sits in the middle of our kitchen table. Candles are lit at supper time. The devotions are read, reminding us again of the season of preparation, getting ready, of anticipation. We hear again the Old Testament prophecies of the Messiah's coming. We are reintroduced again to John the Baptist and his fire and brimstone preaching and ascetic lifestyle. We begin to think about the stable, the manger, shepherds and the wise men, the star and the inn, and the song of the angels about peace on earth, goodwill to all. Advent is here again. With the lighting of the first candles, I begin to wonder at all that the world has been through since the star first shone over Bethlehem, and all that we have been through, my wife and I, since our first Advent together 4 decades and more ago in St. Louis. I begin thinking of all the hopes and dreams represented by the light shining in the darkness, by the promise of Messiah, by hope of peace on earth and goodwill to all. This morning's Old Testament reading, the first lesson, presents us with the utopian image of God's coming kingdom. A picture in words of a world made right by the presence and the judgment of God. He shall judge between the nations, Isaiah writes, as he envisions the advent of the Messiah and of his amazing effect upon the lives of all people. And he shall arbitrate for many peoples. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more. Swords and spears into plowshares and pruning hooks. Advent and Isaiah get me to dreaming about a day and a time when people might demonstrate such vigor and eagerness for helping one another, for affirming and celebrating one another, as we seem often now to demonstrate for obliterating one another, not just on a global scale, within our own communities and our workplaces, even in our families sometimes. Come, invites the prophet Isaiah as he waits for the advent of Messiah. Come, let us walk in the light of the Lord. Advent is a season for walking in the light of the Lord, walking and living as though that vision of Isaiah were a present reality, not just a future dream. Advent is a season for identifying the swords and the spears that we carry in our own persons, by the grace of God, not only laying them down, not only laying down those instruments of power and manipulation that we have clung to for so long, but reforming them into instruments of healing and wholeness. Jesus is coming. We can see it. Even in and through the commercialism that we Christians are often caught in a love-hate relationship with. The Prince of Peace is on his way. He has come, he does come, and he will come again. Advent, if we will allow it, infects us with his presence, so that our every word might be spoken to the backdrop of the perfect kingdom, life, joy the Messiah comes to usher in. As people gathered in worship around the light of the Advent candle, as those who expect and anticipate our Christian dreams to come true, we do not simply wait stagnantly for God to impose peace upon the world, God's will in our lives, to remove our enemies rather than expecting us to love our enemies. Our anticipation is an active anticipation of renewal and reform. The season of light into which we move offers us the challenge of pounding swords and spears of our lives into plows and pruning hooks, of turning them into instruments of light. Advent challenges us to give up our jealousies, our envy, our violent ways of thinking and living, and turn them into the instruments of light, forgiveness, acceptance, humility, service. We are invited to be the first to lay down the violent weapons of prejudice, of needing to win, to be first, to be right, to be important. First light of Advent calls us again to the Messiah's kingdom of grace and hope. The glow of the Advent candle invites us to live our lives with expectation and anticipation. This morning we light again the first candle of Advent. First glow of Christmas. First glow of Thomas. The first reminder again that Jesus is on the way, that the promise continues, that the vision will indeed, by the grace of God, be fulfilled. Amen. Continue our worship with the hymn of the day. Do we stand or do we sit?
Stand.
We stand.